Good afternoon, everybody. A little bit earlier than usual, but it is still Tuesday and it is still Zoom-I-Fication conversation time. So, for those of you who got the note and are here at 2, I am so grateful to you for showing up a little bit early. And for those of you that are watching us on the replay, I know you do it. You tell me you do it. This is going to be a great one to curl up under a blanket and have a glass of wine and listen to. I really think so. Just one little bit of housekeeping. This time change was just a teaser for what's happening next week. Next week, we are officially changing date and time. So we are moving to Mondays at 1. So mark your calendar. Zoom-I-Fication conversations are moving to Mondays at 1 Eastern. But today, we're on at 2 on Tuesday because it's the first day of February. And all of February, we're going to be talking about all kinds of things that are heart related. And today, we are starting with, I'm going to call her the Queen of Hearts. She is an internationally known speaker. She is a science-based relationship coach. Can you imagine? She is that word. She is a matchmaker. And I want her to tell you all about it because she is so good at what she does and has made a difference in so many people's lives. So I'm going to bring her on now and introduce you to my friend. And I love that I get to call her my friend, Arlene Washburn. Hey, Arlene.
Hi, Jean. It's so good to be with you.
I'm so glad you came on. Thank you so much. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about, I know lots about you, but can you tell the viewers a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So, I am a certified matchmaker and science based dating and relationship coach. And my relationship with Jean goes back, I don't know, 10 years. I
Long
remember,
time.
right? You were working with me. I recognized that talent even before you became this award winning photographer. And you've worked with a lot of my clients because we always offer a holistic approach. So if they need new photos, if they need anything, we always have a team of experts that we send them to so that they can put their best foot forward. And then, of course, we do coach people because sometimes if you're newly going into the dating scene or perhaps you've been making choices that are not great for you, sometimes you need a coach to help you along the way figure out your blind spots and be more successful in love.
I think that's wonderful. When we were talking the other day, you said something that really resonated with me. You were talking about how before you ever talk about who the person wants to meet, you make sure that the person knows who they are. Can you kind of talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, that is such a critical thing, Jean. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't figure out. Like, it's almost like you're putting a puzzle together and you have a piece that goes in somewhere, but you don't even know which puzzle you're working with, right? So, a lot of people don't really take the time to get to know themselves. We get so busy and distracted with doing everything and anything and avoiding who we are and figuring ourselves out. When you're out there dating, if you don't know who you are, what your needs are, what your wants are, your deal breakers, you're very likely to make a poor choice because we're all inundated with the shoulds. You should this, you should that, and you should all over yourself, as I always say, because people are telling you what to do. Your parents have expectations, your religion, your society, and all of that, and you really lose yourself. So it's very, very important to know who you are before you make a selection of a partner, which is a huge decision.
It's also really interesting because I think that's the hardest part of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
You spend so much of your life trying to mold yourself into something. To really be honest, looking in the mirror is hard.
Yeah. Authenticity is one of the hardest things because most people are not in alignment with who they really are. Who they are today, who they want to be, and who they think they should be are like three different things. And you're kind of all over the place. And it's so important to really take that time to just dig deep and figure out what are your true beliefs and are those beliefs supporting you. Remember, we pick up a lot of our belief system from 0 to 8, and there are people who are into their 40s and 50s with the same belief system that they had when they were young kids. These feelings of, not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, all of those things. We need to release that, and there is a process, and sometimes you need support to go through that process because it's not something easy for someone to figure out on their own.
We also, I'm going to speak as a woman. It's all I kind of know. But we also have these words that are deposited into our brain. And I'm sure I know it happens to men too, but it's like, how you're supposed to act, what you need to do to attract someone. What does it mean if you're in a relationship? All of that stuff gets deposited so early.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that people are looking to meet that model as opposed to finding real happiness?
Absolutely. I think that there are a lot of people out there who date by trying to find someone that ticks all the boxes, and then rather than the superficial boxes, right, because you need to dig deeper than that, and then they become chameleon daters, and they try to conform to all this stuff to be liked, and they audition when they go on dates and things like that, and it's not sustainable over time, and it's a good way to end up miserable in a bad marriage, a bad relationship, a toxic relationship, because we really need to be authentic. And that doesn't mean to be indulgent. There's still decorum. There's still a lot of things that we know, if you're properly raised, right? But you still need to be authentic to who you really are. Otherwise, you're just it's a formula for setting yourself up to be very unhappy.
I agree. I see people out there watching us. If you want to drop your comments in the comments, we would just love to know what you think about the topic. If you have stories about any of this, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know. Or if you have questions, Arlene is the perfect person to ask questions of. But I know that when we were talking about this conversation, I really wanted to start with what do you see in the dating world today?
Okay, so there's good and bad, right, in the dating world today. I know a lot of people are very resistant to the online world. But the problem is that this is the new venue. We have to maintain and keep up with the trends, right? Things change over time. So now, rather than walking into a bar or walking into any kind of venue, the venues that you go into now are social media. So when we talk about online dating, it's not just the online apps, it's anywhere online, right? Because somebody can easily send me a message if I'm a single person, especially if you're on Facebook where you identify yourself as single or married or whatever. And you have to accept that, because if you're not accepting the trends, you're just kind of swimming upstream, you're not in flow. You're not allowing yourself to go with the flow. So that resistance to online is, I think, a mistake if you're a single person, because most of the time we're online. I mean, look, we just went through 2 years of lockdown, not fully 2 years, but things haven't fully re-engaged. You know what I mean? And so that's a huge area. The other issue that I find is that when people choose to do the online apps, they're not really putting an effort into it. They just kind of throw up some photos that they don't really and you and I can get into a whole conversation.
Please do not take any more photos in the bathroom. I beg of you.
I know.
Beg of you.
The shirt off, all those douchey kind of photos, or photos with your kids. I mean, your kids should always be taken off of anything. You're single, you're dating, you put yourself out there. Don't put your kids out there, because it's also dangerous, right? But anyway, the whole point is that if you really want to do the online thing, and I mean not just the apps, but also Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that are all ways that you can meet people. You have to have great images, especially if you're women, but men as well. Men are visual, and you need to present yourself in the best possible way. And the problem is that we're not really capable of choosing the best photos of us, because there is a study that shows that how we see ourselves is not how others see you. So you're better off getting a committee of honest people to help you select those photos than selecting them yourself. So that's one big trend, is the online trend is here to stay. Another trend is the video dates. Right now, again, just a minute ago before I got on with you, I was fussing with my Ring camera or Ring like, because you need proper lighting. Otherwise you come across as a creep if you're behind this dark image, you know what I mean? And so now people are automatically doing first dates after they've had conversations perhaps, or even some texting back and forth. They're now doing first dates on a Zoom call before they actually meet in person. And I think it's very efficient, and I really believe that's here to stay. So those would be
I
two trends.
love that idea. The whole idea of being catfished, right? The whole idea of,
Exactly.
you know, it was the joke that everybody knew that it was a photo from high school and the person that showed up was Methuselah. You know, it was like, so you can't do that. Like you
Yeah.
see the person. I mean, they might have a background behind them, so you don't know that they're living in their van, but at least you see the person.
Yeah. And, it's so important because it's a great filtering system to, feel safe when you're doing this online thing. And also, you're not spending money going out. You're not all places are ideal to go to right now anyway. You don't have to deal with the whole COVID, mask or vaccinations and all that. You literally can meet people for the first time on video, and then eventually you meet in person. I think it's a great opportunity. I don't think that's ever going to go away now with the online apps. I think the automatic is going to be videos. So obviously there's some people who resist this. Again, I think some of the older singles are very reticent to to get with technology, but you have to keep up. I tell this to my husband all the time. I'm like, babe, we got to keep up with technology, otherwise you become obsolete because everything's being done online. So, not to belabor the point, but that's one whole big trend.
Go online, people. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, we get it. But do you find that, so it was, when I was thinking about this conversation, as I trip over my words right now, do you see a difference between that breaking point at 30, right? 30 and over and 30 and under?
Yeah.
Because when I'm working with people, I really see a difference.
Definitely. I mean, there are different priorities. There are people, and actually, I would go not just 30, but I would say 40 is really the breaking point, because up until 40, you're dealing with singles who, at least for matchmakers, because that's another thing, they have to be able to afford a matchmaker. It's not everybody who's doing that, right? And there's a different priority about marriage and children. And then there's the 40 plus that are usually divorced. Some have never been married, but the divorce community, that's a huge population that's just getting back out there. It's still the boomers that are still the ones that have gotten the most divorced. But yeah, so they have to learn how to date again. They have to regain their sense of self. If you've been in a marriage for a long time, it's a totally different thing from the younger generation. And I would also add that I think it's a good thing that the younger generation is waiting till they're past 28 to get married. So their brains are fully developed and they have a little bit more understanding of who they are, what their priorities are, etc. Than when I was younger. I mean, I got together with my daughter's dad when I was 19. By the time I was 22, I had a child. So yeah,
Yeah.
totally different ball game.
You haven't figured out who you are, but you're raising someone else and helping them figure out who they are. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you look at this thing, you're like, you're calling me mommy? I'm not even an adult yet.
Well, it's so interesting that you brought that up because we've seen that the birth rate is down. People aren't having babies as much. I think the marriage rate is down as well. I think, like there's a new world order when it comes to that kind of commitment and that kind of desire, right?
Yeah.
Has that changed dating?
Does that what?
Does that change how people date too? Because they don't have the same focus.
Yeah. So one of the trends that I saw a while back with the younger generation was group dating. So rather than going on a one-to-one date, there was just a group of people and you would meet people that way rather than And I think, it makes sense for the younger generation because a lot of times they don't really have the financial resources. So they just sort of meet people in groups and then they hook up, the whole hookup, culture. Uh, but yeah, so that would be something different. And I don't really deal with that population as much because in the matchmaking world, we're really working with people who are now making an investment into wanting to have a committed relationship and looking for a life partner. So it's a little bit different.
I'm only going to say this not because I have any um, malice towards these people, but it is very different over 40 to be a woman dating and to be a man dating, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, very much so. And I have to say, my business has trended towards really working with a lot more women. It's a very underserved population, and 50 plus, even into their 60s, we have clients that are pushing 70, and that is a very challenging market, but underserved. And I personally feel a commitment to help these women. And part of the challenge is that, a lot of women take care of themselves a little bit more than their counterpart. Um, and so they're losing their spouses at a certain age. Now they find themselves as widows and they want to date men who are at their level if they have any financial successes or whatever. They also want a man who looks great and who's healthy. And not to say that there are none out there, but a good majority of these guys who are at their age, who look great, who are wealthy, are dating women even 20 years younger. And the sad part about this, Gene, is that there is a study that shows that when women, and this I'm speaking in general terms, of course, but women who date men or even are in a relationship with a man who has an age difference of 5 or more years, okay, ideally you want to be with someone 2 to 3 years or almost the same age as you. You lose a lot of your life if he's way younger. You die younger, and people are people look at me like, what? Yeah, because there's a lot of women who want to date younger men. Well, guess what? The studies show that you're more likely to die younger. You lose years of life by being with a younger man. A lot of it is stress related.
I'm not going to go there, but okay.
And if you date someone older, the same thing happens. The older the person, the greater the gap, the more likely you are to lose years of your life. Whereas the men don't have that issue, right? Men live longer when they're in a relationship. So this only applies to women.
Of course they do. And for the men watching, I love you. I do. But of course you do. The other thing that plays into it, which is really weird. I mean, we said people are having babies at a slower rate, but you are in this situation where as a woman, you get X amount of time. And I hate that. Like, I hate saying it's the biological clock. I don't like that at all. But the truth is, God, Mother Nature, whatever, God really was playing a game when he said, guys can make babies till they, are 90. Yeah. The sperm might not swim as fast, but it still swims. Women are like, oh, eggs are gone at 45. Have a nice day. It's such a strange dynamic because it means a 30-year-old woman is really attractive to a 60-year-old man who hasn't had kids yet, right?
Yeah. The thing is, I think people are getting a lot more savvy about this. If they have the financial ability to freeze their eggs and things like that, they're doing it because that is the reality. And I think a lot more women now are focused on their education, their careers, their businesses. And so they need to think about these things if indeed they want to have a family. And, that's another area that is, you need to really be authentic to yourself. If you don't want to be a parent, you don't have to be a parent just because you're a woman. Because I think a lot of people are conditioned, and when I say people, I mean women that can bear children are conditioned to think that they're not a woman. You're not a complete woman if you don't have a child, but that is not the case. It's perfectly okay if you know, and I mean, you know this, Gina, and you and I are both parents. My daughter's 33. You never stop being a parent. You are always, there's always some stage. They're young, you have to raise them, they get to 18. Oh my God, they're out there driving. Oh my God, all these stages. Now they're dating people, not the right people. Oh my God, now they get married, hope that they've married the right person, and can they have kids? Oh my God, can they have kids? So it's all of that. If you're not signing up for that, it's perfectly okay, and it's not selfish to decide not to have children. And not everybody's like Janet Jackson, who can have a baby at 50 years old. Like, come on,
I actually think those things are so misleading because that's rare.
Exactly.
And you're like, no, I can have the magic spell that'll make it okay that at 54 I can have a baby. Well, you might be one of the, chosen few, but and I love that concept that it is really okay to say, it's not where my heart is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And stop paying attention to all these celebrities and social media and thinking that that's reality. I mean, their photos are not really them. I mean, there's just so much fake stuff out there that I tell people all the time, don't look at this social media stuff and think that that's reality, because it just isn't. And also, these people have tremendous resources that the average person doesn't have.
So let's talk social, because we are such a social beast of world, right? I know when I'm working with people, when they're trying to get jobs, when they're trying to move on or get a scholarship or whatever, I'm saying you need to search for yourself and look at the images that are out there. Look at what's out there in your social, because trust me, your employers are going to do that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you're dating, right?
Oh, most definitely. And that's what I was alluding to before. When we get a new client, the first thing we do is a digital audit. We Google them and we try to find every image that's out there, because people are doing this. The minute you have a conversation with someone and you share enough about yourself, they're Googling you. And typically, if you have a bad photo out there and all the other ones are great, they go by the bad photo of you. Or in a bad photo, I don't mean like you may not look attractive, or you may be doing something that, if you're now in your mid 40s, get rid of the photos of you as a wild, college student doing whatever. I think a lot of people have already done that. I'm a big believer that everyone should have a Google alert. Okay, so that they get a notification when your name comes up on Google. Not just people who are business people, but we are all living online. So you should have a Google alert about yourself, so that you know what's being put out there about you. Because now people can tag you, they can add you to a photo and tag your Facebook account. So yeah, I'm always careful. Like, I try not to, if I'm out with friends and I take a picture, I try not to tag people or add them or even post pictures of others, but people do it all the time. So
one of the things that I do, especially for my clients, because I follow my clients and my friends just for this reason. I think sometimes I'm not even looking for them. I'm looking for them in the background, because and I would ask everyone who's taking a picture at a party or taking a picture in an event, you might love what you look like. Crop the person out in the back that doesn't. And it's not that they don't look good. I'm not talking about, we're not talking about just that esoteric, they don't look good. This is, I've seen pictures where legs are splayed, or the person's got food sticking out of their mouth, or, there's like, that's not funny to that person, right? And being conscious of that is so important. Just be a friend.
Yeah, agreed.
Because it does, people, look, there have been a couple of pictures of me out there that I've literally had to call people and say, look, I will crop me out of the picture for you so you can put it back up, but you have to pull that down. I was like, what were you thinking? And then I was like, oh my God, what was I thinking? I'll never do that again. But I will never eat in public ever. But yeah, it's crazy, the stuff that can be out there.
Absolutely. My husband and I, like, we always take pictures. I'm always trying to do selfies and things like that. And I always ask him, is it okay if I post this? And he could care less what he looks like. He has no shame to his game, like he's very confident. He doesn't care, what people think. But I always ask him, and there's some goofy pictures that I've posted of him out there, but they're just so funny to me that I just, but I'm aware that I'm doing that. Some people are just like not aware whatsoever. So,
It is, or they are and they think, oh, they'll love it. No, they don't. They don't love it.
yeah. I've had some photos that I've posted, and like I said before about that study that shows we're not good at picking our own photos. This is where kids really come in handy, especially daughters, because my daughter loves to be honest with me. she'll be like, Mom, take that picture down. You look terrible. And I'm like, what? And I'm over here scrambling to take it down because I'm like, you're very delusional about yourself and what you think is a good photo. And it's amazing to me.
When I work with my clients, it happens all the time. People focus in on what they think their failure is. So if they don't like this eye, or they think that, they have a funny smile, or whatever it is they've decided is wrong, that's all they look at in the photo.
Yeah.
And they look for the photo where they don't think that's wrong. Their eyes could be half closed, their hair could be sticky, but the smile looks good, So it does. My job is to pull people out of that. You want to pull yourself away from that thing you thought was wrong. Because, by the way, no one else thinks it's wrong. You're the only one.
Yeah.
So, you kind of pull yourself up and out of that and really try to look at the photo, and it makes a different impression. I will say, be careful sometimes about the people that you ask, because everybody that you ask, when they look at your photo, they imprint it with their idea of who you are. So like I'll see kids say, oh, that's not my mom. She doesn't look like that. And it was because that day she had makeup on and she looked really good.
Wow.
And they were used to mom in sweats and a ponytail. So you want to kind of be careful when people say they don't like something. You want to, after you get past the, you want to go, why? What is it you don't like about it? Well, I'm used to you in a ponytail. Oh, okay. Well, I like my hair this way. Have a nice day. But
that is a really great point, and it reminds me in the dating world how people swing the pendulum, right? So they'll say, I dated a guy from Wall Street and he was such a jerk, and blah, blah. Now I'm never going to date anybody from Wall Street. Or I met this guy and he was this. Now never do, like similar to what you're saying, you just get overly focused, hyper focused on one thing, and you swing the pendulum to the other side rather than being moderate about it. And also a lot of the categories that we put people in are just like this is our own construct. They're not legit categories, you know what I mean? So
it wasn't that you
just
didn't like the guy because he was on Wall Street. There was something about the guy you didn't like.
Exactly. But I think human nature is to sort of put things in a box and try to arrange things in such a way, and it doesn't make sense to some people, but to you it might make sense. So as a coach, I spent a fair amount of time getting people out of that kind of thinking, in order to get them to open up. You say open heart, open minds. What does that mean? Well, let's start there.
Well, it makes total sense, because you're sitting inside your box going, oh, it's like when you go to your closet and they tell you to organize your closet, right? So like if you could put P touches on where your sweaters are and if you could do that to people, right? It makes life easier. You can pull out the people box when you need support, or this people box when you want to go, play sports, or if you can do that. But life doesn't work that way. People don't work that way.
No, exactly. Absolutely.
So I'm going to go to this one because this is my favorite one, and you're going to tell me what you think of the infamous opposites attract.
Oh, that is completely erroneous. The qualification here is that people misconstrued that by saying, okay, well, an interracial couple doesn't work. We're not talking about looks. When we talk about opposites attract, we're talking about not having the same core values and key life values as the person that you're with. So birds of a feather flock together. And more often than not, you want to even with looks, you want to have more or less the same attraction level. So if and I don't mean to be superficial, but like if you're a 5 and a 10, that's usually not going to be a long-term thing unless there's other factors involved. And typically that would then be the woman being the 10 and the guy being, well, no, I guess it could go either way, right? But anyway, I won't go too much into that. So you definitely want a similar attraction level, similar, education level. And that doesn't always mean that both have the same level of education per se, but more like on the same wavelength in terms of how smart a person is, right? I mean, any real disparity rather, will be challenging for the relationship. And time again, we look at these studies and it shows the same thing. That yeah, those big differences. So for sure, opposites might attract, but they don't last.
I think people feel like it fills a hole for them in the beginning.
That's part of the issue.
And then it becomes a pebble in that hole that's just bouncing around and irritating the crap out of you.
Well, and that's exactly right, because you may admire a quality that someone has that you don't have, but then that becomes the thing that irritates you about the person. I think that if two people have a very similar viewpoint, and I'm not saying you need to be twins, but if you have a similar viewpoint, you're going to have a more harmonious relationship and a long-lasting relationship. If you are diametrically opposed on very key things like finances, family, health, education, everybody has different things, right? But if you're not aligned with your core values, the likelihood is that the relationship is not going to last, unfortunately.
It really comes down to something as simple as it's Saturday. And if you want to go for a bike ride and your partner wants to sit in a chair and read a book, you probably have an issue.
Yes, potentially. I'm always leery of people trying to meet someone that has the same desire for the same activities. However, if those activities are lifestyle, then to your point, if it's a lifestyle thing, so for example, that person who wants to go bike riding is very conscientious about their health and fitness, and the other person is more of a couch potato and doesn't really care so much about health and fitness, that over time could be a deal breaker. So it's this is why matchmaking is such a challenging thing, because you're really trying to fit a lot of puzzle pieces together. You're looking at core values, you're looking at lifestyles, life goals. There's so many little intricacies, and then the looks, and and believe it or not, the looks is usually the easiest thing. The harder thing is getting that compatibility and even getting your clients to recognize the compatibility, right? Because the one client that I always talk about, and I love her to death, who's now very happily married, but she didn't even want to go on a second date because off of the initial date, she felt like maybe that wasn't her guy. She had an impression on him. And the thing is, first dates are very hard to really get to know someone on a first date. People are nervous. A lot of people are terrible daters. And they say the wrong things and they talk too much or whatever, right? And a first date is not a good one, right? But anyway, long story short, she kept dating him thanks to my nudging, and now she's very happily married, and she got married for the first time at the age of 60.
Wow.
Yeah.
When we were talking, I was thinking about this whole people who say, well, it's aspirational, right? I love this guy because, he gets me to exercise, or, I love this woman because she gets me to go to, to museums, or maybe she gets me to exercise, whatever it is. That's a dangerous trap too, right?
Yeah, because typically the person who's doing that is the chameleon girlfriend or boyfriend. They're the ones who are trying to fit in with this person because you're doing things that you never do, that you don't do them because you don't like to do it, because you might see the value because you're in that limerence, which is that feeling of like, oh, I just met someone and I just love them and they can do no wrong. Remember, our bodies go through a lot of chemical changes that affect our behavior. And so there's a lot in our behavior that is not really who we are in the beginning because of that. And then ultimately the real you comes out and you're like, ugh, I don't want to do this. This is not what I like to do. I don't see the value in it. And now you're in a situation where there's that compatibility doesn't exist. That's why I say be authentic. You know, the aspirational thing, you can't change people. You can't force people to do anything. Those of you who marry potential, or you're just taking on a project, you have to accept somebody for who they are right now. And then hopefully everybody improves, right? We're a work in progress until we die. But you need to be with someone that you can accept their flaws and their qualities and be okay with their flaws and tolerate whatever is never going to change, because there's a lot in people that will never change.
And you can't change them.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. That's number one. Yeah.
They are not a fixer-upper. People are not fixer-uppers.
And you know what's interesting to me, that I have worked with many therapists and healers, right? I call them healers because, and I relate to this very much so, because you're a people person, you want to help people, and this is something that you do in your career. However, sometimes people can't compartmentalize that and say, you know what? I don't need a relationship where I'm fixing and doing and healing. That's my job. I want to have a partner who gets me, who's my support, and I'm their support. And so a lot of these folks, I find you have to bring it to their consciousness that they're doing that. They're taking on relationships with people who are, for them almost, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but kind of like a fixer-upper. And it's like, people need to fix themselves. You can't be the one doing it unless it's your profession, and then you're getting paid for that. It's a different kind of relationship. But yeah, I see that quite a bit with some of my clients that are in that genre.
What about I'm lonely, and so I'll take anybody?
Yeah. That gets back to our original opening statement about getting to know yourself so that you can have a selection process for who you are with. A lot of the people who really are lonely and will do that is people, sometimes you end up in a marriage that's not right for you, and you stay in it because you tell yourself, oh, well, the kids, what's going to happen financially, all these different reasons. So you end up a very lonely person in a marriage because you feel like, oh my gosh, if I have to go date again, that's going to be a nightmare. And you tell yourself all these stories and you stay in a situation like that. And that is very detrimental. It's detrimental to the children because the kids grow up seeing a loveless marriage. They're well aware, and then they go on to do exactly what they saw at home. They're not going to get other messages from everywhere else. They're actually going to repeat the cycle or swing the pendulum somehow. It's not healthy for the individuals involved. I think you and I had a conversation about partnerships and how your spouse or your significant other literally regulates your blood pressure. Your blood pressure can change from just being in a bad relationship, in a toxic relationship. And I mean, I could just go on and on about how bad it is to stay in a situation that is not right for you and that's just causing you pain. And loneliness kills so many people in this country because it creates heart disease. There's so many issues with loneliness, and this pandemic, coming out of the heels of that, I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of issues with mental health and everything else, just from loneliness and then right down into the cycle of everything else.
So it really does swing back to that whole concept of figuring out who you are, being happy sitting. If you can be happy sitting alone and know who you are in that space,
Yep.
then you sort of are in a place where you can really find someone that resonates with you, right?
Absolutely, because happiness is an inside game. So it's not that you're going to meet someone to make you happy. You need to have that inner peace and that inner happiness. And a way to do that is to say, well, what is it that I need? And then provide that for yourself. And I think a lot of people are looking outside of themselves to get this or that, that you need this and somebody else has to get it for you. No, you need to really figure yourself out. And then when you are happy and the way you present yourself in the world is very different. You walk into a room, your light is on. There's an air about you. And you don't have to be the most beautiful person. You don't have to be the thinnest person. You don't have to. No, it's just this energy that comes into a room and people are like, who's that? Oh my gosh, she's amazing. And so that's what we need to work towards, especially if you're single. Because if you're single and your light is off and you're putting out that kind of energy, you're going to prolong that status if you really want to get into a relationship.
Or you're going to attract someone who likes you with your light off.
Yeah, usually a narcissist. Sorry. But yeah.
That is the such the rub, right? Is that there really is a person for every person, but it's a person for every person as they stand. So if you aren't in your best skin, and I mean that just overall, right? If you aren't in that headspace where you're at your best and you start a relationship with someone, they're taking you on when you're not at your best.
Absolutely.
And they're attracted to you when you're not at your best, which is an interesting conversation to have. It's like,
yeah, so true. I always want to say, look, you don't have to be perfect, to be in a relationship, because there is a lot that you learn within the relationship, but you need to have an awareness of your standards, your core values, your deal breakers. And when I say deal breakers, people love to say, "Oh, that's a deal breaker," and then they'll go right past their own deal breakers. That's not if it's something that you're going to overlook, it's not a deal breaker, right? So that's why these lists, when I work with clients, they're going to give me a list of deal breakers. They're tops, maybe 5 things, if that, right? 3 to 5 things. But you need to stand by that, because when you don't have standards, you attract the wrong people. A lot of times people don't respect people that don't have standards. It's the way you treat yourself is how you teach others to treat you. So it's super important to have that self-love and that self-care and that confidence. And the only way to get confidence is to be clear and to know who you are, and that way you walk through. It's like you have a pep in your step, because you're like, okay, I've got it. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I'm confident. I feel like whatever it is that clarity just gives you a little confidence that you wouldn't otherwise, when you're out of sorts and you're insecure and you don't know what you're doing. Your body language is different. You're like hiding. It's obvious to people. So I would always start there. And actually, I have a really good PDF if anybody who's listening wants it. If they go to my Instagram at Arlene Washburn, they just have to DM me the word core values, and they'll be able to like I have a bot, it's called AV the bot. She will send you that document, because I have met people in their 50s who say, first of all, what exactly is a core value? I hear that all the time. I don't know what it is. And then how do I establish my core values? And it's such an important part of this whole dating process that I decided to create that PDF. So if anybody needs that, just DM me the words core values and you'll automatically get a response so you can download it, because it's super important.
I am setting this up so that I can put it on the screen so everybody will remember it.
Thank you. And it's on my Instagram. I have that set up to respond to things. I'll have to do that with Facebook as well.
That is awesome. And actually, you want to follow Arlene in her social media.
Thank you.
There's a lot of really great stuff that goes on out there. It is so interesting that everything we talked about today rolled back to a word you said close to the beginning of this, which was boundaries, right? Like, and you don't know what your boundaries are until you know who you are.
Yeah.
So dating doesn't start with the other person. Dating starts with you dating yourself.
Absolutely. And knowing your boundaries is not enough. It's learning how to communicate your boundaries and communicating it in a way that is not off-putting, because that's the other challenge, right? A lot of times when people want to communicate boundaries, especially women, because I always say women because I coach a lot of women, we're taught to be nice, to um, to go with the flow and all this stuff that kind of gets you to not communicate your boundaries. So in order for you to do it, you almost have to be pissed off. And that's not ideal, right? So you want to learn to communicate your boundaries in such a way that it's not off-putting, but that you're clear and people understand you, and they don't need to get pissed off at you because you're communicating it in a way that's confident but yet nice and everything else. So that's another area that is challenging, because when you're dating, you need to have clear boundaries. And a lot of people don't have the boundaries. And when they do, they communicate them very poorly.
When you were saying that, it just hit me because we're really taught to, stay the course and be open and be available.
Yeah.
And don't be pushy, and don't be putting stuff out there, because if you put it out there first, then they might not want to get close to you. And it's like, well, wait a second. If you can just say it nicely, this matters to me.
Yeah.
Do you want someone who's going to say, well, it doesn't matter to me and I'm not going to respect that?
The fallacy of all of this is that for the longest time, we're indoctrinating women into this style of communication. And yet, all the men that I talk to, I've yet to speak to a man who doesn't say to me, Arlene, I just want to know, like, I want clear instructions. Like, what does this person need? What do they want? So I can provide it. Because men want to please. I mean, look, I love men and I think men are great. And I think for the most part, there are a lot of good guys out there who just want to know, what the hell do you want? Because a lot of people can't communicate their needs. And that's because we're teaching the women not to communicate the needs. And then the men are like, how do I know what she wants? And then if the person goes off half cocked, in their communication style, then the guy's like, well, she's crazy. It's not that she's crazy. It's that it makes you crazy when you're going against what you believe, which is what you've been told.
Yep.
And you're doing something against that. It makes you come off crazy, but you're not crazy. So there's a lot that needs to be addressed out there. And that's the mission that I'm on.
It's so interesting because I think we tend to get to the edge of the volcano, right? So it's like you let them walk farther and farther and farther along. And you're thinking, I should tell them it's going to get hot. Like, I should tell them it's going to get dangerous. I should probably tell them this is not safe for them. Like, I should probably say that, but we're still on this walk. I mean, they're still with me. We're still on this walk, but we're really getting close to the edge. Like, this could get bad. And then you're at the edge and you're like, wait, don't do it.
Right.
And whatever it is, it's like, don't, anything like, oh my God, your socks are on the floor. Whatever it is, if it was really, I have boundaries with my space and I don't like people leaving their stuff around. That's something they probably need to know. And it's not a horrible thing, but we do tend to say, I'll put up with it. 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 Oh no.
Yeah.
Right.
That is such a great point. There's a good quiz that I have on one of my websites. It's quiz.getrealgetlove.com. If anybody wants to take this quiz, one of the questions on there is, you hear this all the time, don't sweat the small stuff. Well, guess what? You should sweat the small stuff. Why? Because it's how if something small bothers you, you need to be able to communicate that, because the other person doesn't know this, which is exactly what you said, Jean. That is the way, we've been taught not just how, not to communicate, and what communication we have has been poorly taught to us, but now we're also being told don't do this and don't do that. And a lot of what they're saying is incorrect. It is incorrect with what the science shows and what the research shows. That yes, you need to communicate the small things that bother you, because the small things add up. And learning how to communicate those things not only helps you feel good about yourself and to have, these standards and boundaries, whatever, but also the person who's with you gets to know you and can opt in or out of your requests, because it's another thing, right?
And then they feel free enough, and you have to be open to this, because they'll feel free enough to say, you know what, I get that you don't like socks on your floor. I really hate the lipstick on the sink.
Absolutely.
Right? So, and then you got to go, oh, okay. And you suddenly get to go, is this really a deal breaker? No, I can put my lipstick away.
Absolutely. I think that's where when we hear that someone that you're with makes you a better person, is because you are communicating those things to one another. And a lot of times it's an improvement for you or that person, because the things that you consider to be an issue, or not an issue, I want to say like something that bothers you, a lot of times it's reasonable. That's why you should sweat the small stuff, and every so often when you're in a relationship, you should sit and come together and say, okay, what are the things that you would like to see me change? What let's have this conversation, and let's have a little negotiation of like, okay, if you change this, I'll change that. And let's, like, people think that relationships are just supposed to happen. No, you have to come together often, all right, and renegotiate your deal every time, like, hey, I recognize.
Yeah.
Huh?
Cinderella was a fairy tale for a reason.
Exactly. I mean, marriage is a contract, and the relationship is a partnership. And when you have a partnership in business, you're looking at your business plan, you're going over strategy, you are rowing together in the same direction. It's the same thing with a marriage. If you're not having that consistent communication and looking at things, if this didn't go well, how can we do this different? How do we roll up our sleeves and fix this so it doesn't happen again? If you're not doing that, that's where people say, well, our marriage fell apart, or we became distant, or all that stuff. There's a behavior that leads to that. Aside from choosing the wrong partner in the first place, that could be the first problem. But if you choose the right partner, you can still screw it up if you're not communicating on a consistent basis to maintain the relationship. So
when you were talking, I flashed back to that conversation about the photos, and we don't see what is really there when we're looking at photos of ourselves. And when we ask our families, sometimes they only see what they think is true about you. And sometimes you really need to go out and get really an objective opinion, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly this, because you go to your girlfriends and you're like, oh my God, he left his socks on the floor. And they go, oh my God, he's horrible. Right? And he'll go to his friends and it's like, oh my God, there's lipstick everywhere. I can't stand it when women do that. Oh my God, she's horrible. It's who you go to for advice, who you go to for support. Look, your friends are always going to go, oh my God, of course you're totally right. Finding someone who is objective and who can say, seriously, it was freaking lipstick and socks. What are you doing? Right?
Well, objective and competent in the subject matter. That's why I'm a big believer that every person should have a board of directors of their life. And these people should consist of, if you're a parent and you want parenting advice, go to someone who's raised children, who has done it successfully. If you want advice about dating and relationships, go to a coach or go to someone who has successfully navigated a long-term relationship. I think that if you're chronically single and you're trying to get advice from your chronically single friends, that's not a good strategy, right? So when I work with clients, the first thing I do is say, look, do not ask for advice to anyone from this point forward other than what we're doing together, because people are not trained. They're not subject matter experts in this area. Even sometimes the therapists, right? Some therapists are not aware of dating and relationship advice. A lot of them even struggle. As I said, I've had many of them be clients of mine. So you really need to find the specialist. It's kind of like if you have a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist, that's what I would say to everyone. Be mindful of who you ask your advice from.
And just know, sometimes you do want to go to your girlfriends because sometimes you really do need that glass of wine and someone saying, oh, yeah, he's a total jerk. But then you have to step back and go, okay, that was sort of like, that was like the chocolate cake for the moment, but now I got to go back to and some lean meats and let's figure out what's really happening.
Yeah.
As you said before, no one's perfect. Nothing's perfect, but being honest enough to understand that there's more out there and other people would have other opinions.
Absolutely.
So to that end, I think this is kind of a really perfect place to talk about this new thing that you're doing because I love it. I love this community that you're building because it's going to have a lot of this information on it, right?
Yes. So one of the things that we're working on now, I've been thinking of a way to be able to offer a lot to many people and make it affordable because I don't have the bandwidth as a matchmaker and a lot of people don't have the resources to work with me. So this year we started a membership site that has I add weekly content to it. We're going to be doing a lot of live programs. Yes. And it's under the Get Real, Get Love membership. So it's member.getrealgetlove.com/join now. Now, here's what you get. If you become a member, you can have a paid membership. It's $8 a month. That's like a no-brainer. People buy coffee that's, I won't say it's bad for you, but, you buy drinks that aren't good for you for a lot more money than that. That is a founding member price. It's ultimately going to end up maybe $100 a month. But if you join now, it's $8. As it grows, the content is going to continue, the value, everything else, you're going to remain under that dollar amount. But the other great thing is if you're a single person, once you join, you become a club member. If you are a potential match for one of our clients who are VIP clients who pay thousands of dollars, you might have the opportunity to meet one of those people if you're a match, because I'm an executive matchmaker. So when people hire me, they pay me to find their match. It doesn't matter if their match paid or not. And typically they haven't, right? I always say no stone unturned. So wherever I meet people, if they're a good match, I vet them. We do background checks, all that good stuff. So there's a lot that you get out of it. You get coaching, you get advice, there's programs. I think you're going to be working on one on photography, hopefully, because people need to know about how to take a good photo. And there's just a ton of stuff, online dating advice, you name it, and a lot of live programs. So, and tomorrow I'm doing a workshop, and that's also going to go into the membership site. Tomorrow it's a live workshop on how to hold on to your 2022 love goals. So be on the lookout for that.
It's awesome. It's such an interesting conversation to me because we have this idea that if you just sit still, love comes. Sit in your chair, love's going to come to you. And I think that's why we settle so much too, right? Because, well, I've been sitting in my chair, and finally this person came past. I'm taking them. I've been waiting a really long time, so you're good. Whatever you are, you're good. I'm keeping you. So really being able to talk about what it means to want to be in a viable relationship and how to get one is really important.
Jean, you have hit every single point, and we didn't even talk about what we would talk about, right? This is one of my biggest pet peeves that's been propagated to women. It's that, oh, don't worry, when you least expect it, that's when it's going to happen. Just sit and pray and hope. And men have to, let me tell you, only 10% of the women out there are actually proactively doing something to get out of being single, and they're having success. And it's because women have been indoctrinated into this thought process that you're this princess, Arlene, that you're just waiting. Oh, sorry. That's my Alexa reminders. But yeah, we need to get out of this mindset. You need to be intentional and take action. Nothing in life that's important happens just with you sitting and waiting. You put all this time and energy into your businesses, your business, your education, you name it. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Anything and everything. And then all of a sudden, the most important thing in your life, you leave that to chance. That's crazy.
And if you like going to bars, okay, go to bars, because then you're going to meet a guy who likes going to bars. But if you like museums, you can find activities around museums. You can find activity around art. If your thing is hiking, clubs where people go hiking, there are so many ways to do that that are proactive for you.
Yes.
Right.
And that's a great way to meet people. Doing something that you love and having fun and laughing. You become more interesting and more attractive when you're having fun. So that's excellent advice.
I have listened to you for a lot of time. We've known each other a while. We are at our hour, guys. I have to thank Arlene. Arlene, thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your information with us. If you want to reach out to Arlene, go to Get Real, Get Love, and or follow her on Arlene Washburn. You can send her DMs. She's amazing to talk with, as you probably have figured out. I love you, Arlene. Thank you so much for coming and playing with us.
I love you so much. And we've been together, like 10 years? I'm still sending my people to you. Yeah, we need to do this again, because this was like a fast hour.
It went like that.
But I really hope that people got at least one thing out of it.
I do. I really do hope so. And so for everybody who's watching us live, I was seeing you coming in and out, and I know it was dating and you didn't want to talk, and I get it, but you can talk. I'm so happy that you came and watched us. I love you, all of our live viewers, but I also love all of those people that are watching it on their couch with their jammies on. You're my people. I love you, and I know you're there. So leave comments if you want. We're here. You know how to get a hold of me. I guess I should put that up. I always forget to put that up, but you know how to get a hold of me. You can find me on my website at jeanturmanphotography.com, and you are on my Facebook page or my YouTube page right now. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And next week, it's another heart-centered conversation, but this time we're going to the other side of it. We're going to what happens when love goes wrong. So I'm going to be talking with a trauma therapist, and we're going to talk about how to get out of that. So this was really proactive and very light-based. And next week, we're going to talk about how to deal with the scars. So I'm very excited. So I hope you come back. Remember, next week, it's Monday at 1 o'clock next week. It's going to be amazing. Everybody, have a great week. Stay happy, stay centered, find out who you really are, and then attract the person who really makes you a better person in the world.
Nice.
Love y'all. Thanks, Arlene. Bye, everybody.